Okay, so now I'm ready to prime. We've removed the hardware and I'm ready to prime this piece. I'm gonna work on this area right here because it's the easiest for you to see while I work. I am, like I told you, gonna put the transfer here. So I really don't need to prime this piece because it's going to be covered by a transfer that's dark with roses, but it's just a really good area for you to see. So when I do use primer, in the past when I'd use shellac, I would use these chip brushes just like this. I get these at Home Depot by the dozen. You can order them anywhere online. They're called chip brushes. They're inexpensive. I think they're about 95 cents if you buy them individually. If you buy them in bulk, I think that they can go all the way down to like 65 cents a piece. I use these a lot. The only thing is they do lose these bristly hairs, so I usually try to, I fluff my brush like this. I try to pull some of the excess hairs out before I get started. And always watch when you're painting your piece to see if you're leaving any bristles behind, because when you do paint your piece, or especially if you use a dark wax or a glaze over your finish, if you've got any bristles in there, that's when they're gonna show up. So you do not have, I'm using Boss Clear right now. I'm gonna use Boss Clear. That washes right out with soap and water out of your brush, but I'm real picky about my brushes, and I don't like to use primer with my good brushes. You could also apply primer if you wanted with the Dixie Belle sponge, and we're going to talk more about this later, but I use this more for scratch coats, which is your first coat layer, and I also use it for top coats, and so I kind of save those for that. But it does make things a lot faster, and I'll show you here. So this is my chip brush, and I've got my this is my Dixie Belle Clear that I'm using. I don't need to hold this up. Y'all have already seen it. I'm using the Dixie Belle Clear, and even though it's clear, it's going to go on white. So I would probably start on this piece right here on the carving, and I just want to get it in there nice and good. Now the carving is not going to have the transfer paper on it. So if I end up, I'm not sure what color I'm going to paint this piece. So if I end up painting it a white, I do want to make sure that I'm not going to have bleed through here. So I want to get in there really good. And what I'm doing right now is called pouncing. And that when you have a lot of carvings, that's a really good way to get down in all those nooks and crannies. You just want to kind of cram it in there. Now I can already see, I know that you guys won't be able to see this, but I can already see that there's some bleed through here in the cracks and crevices. And we may not be able to pick that up on camera, but I can see it there. So it's a really, really good thing that I am priming this area. All right, and then I always just kind of smooth out my strokes so that you don't have a layer between here and here. It's not just like a definitive line, so that when I put paint over it, you can't see like a line. I feather it out. And that's what I do right here. Yeah, just kind of smooth it out. Okay, so that's primed. And then see the extra bristle sticking up here? That's a loose bristle. You want to try to pull that. Okay, so then I want to go up here in these cracks. That's where the dirt and residue that, even though you've cleaned and you ran your white lightning up in there, it's still hard to get it all out. So I always do my cracks areas first around the trim and the edges. Just pounce in there. Now before that dries, I want to go back and smooth it out like I showed you. Just go back and kind of feather those areas out. You want to always move with confidence, you guys, when you're painting. You don't want to like get in there and be like, oh, I'm going to try to be so careful. No, just get it on there. Smooth it out. Make it nice and smooth. Okay, just like that. Remember, this is going to dry clear. I'm going to go all the way around the edge here, and then we'll do the flat center. This is a great piece to give you guys a really good example of what it's like to prep a piece. This is a great piece to do it on. And I hope the microphone is working really well for you guys and that my voice is being picked up well. We really had a trouble this last week because we were trying a new platform. We were trying to do a Zoom webinar for business reasons, but that just didn't work well for us. So we're just going to go right back to Facebook Lives for our courses and then do some more pre-recorded videos. So there we go. Feathered all that out. All my cracks are done. And now let's do the center part. So let's see if I've got some extra bristles, get those out. All right, let me use my sponge now so that I can show you. This is my sponge. The sponge fits perfectly in the Dixie Belle lids. So there's some primer, and then you can just take it and smooth it on. Literally like this. You will not be left with any brush strokes at all. The only thing is the sponge doesn't leave as much primer behind as a brush. You use less product, but on the primer you don't want to under prime for sure. But you can literally go in any direction you want. You see that? You just scrub it on, go in any direction you want. But before it starts to get tacky, you want to go back and make your strokes nice and smooth in one direction, just like this. The only thing about the sponges is if you have a lot of trim work, it's going to puddle in that trim work. So see right here, it's kind of puddled. You want to go back with your brush, kind of smooth that back out. You do not want paint, primer, anything, glazes, top coats, you never want them to puddle, okay? Go back and smooth out those areas. Just like that. It's puddled in there a little bit. I'm going to go in with my dryer brush. You can even take a paper towel and kind of wipe some excess off of that so your brush is nice and dry. And get up in there and pull out any extra puddles, just like that. Okay. For all you ladies who wear makeup, it's kind of the same thing. I think I have a bristle right there. Yep, I did. I'm going to get it. Just put my finger right in the middle of that. Pulled that bristle off. Smooth that part back out. Okay. You can already see where I use the sponge. These areas are already drying. Okay. So now let's do this outside area. I'm going to use the sponge again just because it goes a lot faster for video purposes. So I'm going to use this outside area of the drawer. I did already. Y'all watched me clean this part. Just like that. So I do want to tell you too, I missed telling you, I told you that the shellac stinks really bad and it runs. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, this product is creamy. It's very, very creamy. It does not run at all, and it has no odor. It has a small odor, but it's a very natural smelling smell. It actually sort of smells like paste. It kind of smells like old-fashioned paste from grade school, like elementary school. But no fumes at all. Not like shellac, where I feel like I'm gonna, end up with lung cancer if I breathe it too long or get migraine headaches. All right, got a little bit of puddling over here. Kind of smooth that out. Just take out the excess with your brush, just like that. There we go. One last smooth. There we go. All right, so that is primed. You would just continue that process all over the entire piece. And it does. It takes some time, but it's well worth it. It means that you're not going to have bleed through at the very end, and it also means that no matter what, your paint is going to adhere, which you don't need it if you aren't worried about bleed through. If you're doing a newer piece or a piece that you've, if you're not doing a real wood piece, obviously you're not going to have bleed through. But I just think that if you've got the time, you should at least do a clear primer. So I'm going to let this dry just a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you about brushes because our next step is to paint. And that goes really, really fast. So let's talk about what brush types you would use. Matt, do you mind washing these out for me, please? Thank you. When I first started, there are boutique brushes that you use with boutique paints, which is what I call, Dixie Belle to me is a boutique paint. However, before I started using fancy brushes, I got by just fine with a brush that I used from Home Depot all the time on every project, and it's called a Shorty. I don't have one anymore. I don't even have one, which is crazy because I used it for years, but it has a little short blue rubber handle. You can't miss it. That's at Home Depot and Lowe's. It's usually blue rubber, like very blue, like my tennis shoe blue. That's really good, isn't it? Let's do some yoga. It's blue and it's a short rubber handle, which is really good. It feels good in your hand. It allows you to get in tight spaces like cubby holes or drawers or inside desks, things like that, without the big handle sticking out. It works well. It's also got an angle to it a little bit. Actually, I think they have a flat and an angle. I usually used the angle brush. So I don't use that anymore because Dixie Belle came out with a brush that I'll show you in just a minute. But prior to Dixie Belle coming out with brushes, I became a Klingon user. I started using a brush called Klingon, and if you are already a chalk painter, you are well aware of this brush. It's a really good brush, and it's called Klingon. And here are two different Klingon brushes. I don't know what numbers these are. I'll look on it and see if it says. One of them is a flat and one is an oval. I do know that. This is an oval. They call it based on the shape that the bristles are in. So that's an oval shape. And this looks kind of oval right now, but it actually was a flat. So I think that they're both mediums. This is a 30. Klingon F30, flat 30. And this one is a Klingon O30. Or O35, oval 35. So this is a really good brush. I used them for a long time. But the problem is that they became so popular so fast, and I think they were having trouble with manufacturing, and they were on back order forever, and no one could get them. And so Dixie Belle carried them, but they couldn't get them to their retailers because they were on back order. Couldn't get them to me, they were on back order. So Dixie Belle said, because they are, go-getters, they said, you know what, we're going to start manufacturing our own brushes, and let's do a Klingon brush, but let's even make it a little bit better. And then we make our own brushes, and we don't have to sit around waiting for someone else to get the brushes to us, even though it's a great brush. So they did, and they just recently launched their brushes. They are available online. I did put them on the supply list, and I highly recommend you try them. They're actually very affordable. They are more expensive for sure than the shorty brush that you're going to get at Home Depot or Lowe's that I told you about. That's only I think it's $5 or $6 for that brush. But that brush is meant for latex paint. It did me just fine for years, but there is a difference. And this is their comparable brush to the one I told you about from Home Depot. But this is they call them Dixie Belles. It's their Belle brushes. This is called their Mini, M-I-N-I. And it is because it has this mini short handle. That's the problem with all of the Klingon brushes have these long handles. Would y'all look at that? Why? I don't understand why we need that handle. Some painters chopped those off. They saw them right off. So they came out with this little short handle, and I really, really like it. And then this is my other favorite is called an F as in Frank, M as in Mary. It's also on the supply list. It's a flat medium. And it's got kind of an unusually shaped little sexy handle here, which makes it really, really hard to hold on. Easy to hold on to. So I like that, and it doesn't have the long handle either. So they made these specifically for chalk paint, you guys. They're a synthetic brush. They're a beautiful wine color. It's a gorgeous wine color, which that doesn't really matter, but they're pretty, and they're super, super, super ultra soft. I can use these when I'm sloughing away gold leaf. I can use them to color blend beautifully, and the reason is I'm not really sure. They gave us all kinds of technical stuff to share with you, but what's important to me is that it works really well, and why it works well is that it loads a lot of paint. It will hold a lot of paint in one dip. Chalk paint's very thick and has a lot of consistency and texture in it, and this holds that really well, and it supports it. And when you paint, it's not just flopping from it, and it also doesn't just have a big glob on the end. It literally gets in all of these little tiny, tiny, tiny microfiber bristles. It gets down in there, and it stays for a long period of time. And especially if you're color blending and using water and mixing many different colors together, these work really well for that reason. So these are my two favorite brushes right now. They're new to me. I've only been using them about 12 weeks, and I really, really like them. So they're on the supply list. My other brushes that I cannot live without, y'all, are these two brushes. They are both just craft brushes from Hobby Lobby. I buy these at Hobby Lobby. I have hundreds of them in my shop on any given day. I can't live without them. This one is a 1-inch flat artist brush. A 1-inch flat artist brush, and this one is I think this one's like a 1/4 inch 5/8 actually, angle. It has an angle to it. I also will use an angle brush just like it, but in a 1/2 inch, just like that. I use these a lot, but I'm a detail painter, and that's what these are for, or for painting. These are for painting details. This you will need whether you paint details or not. When you're painting on a piece like this, and you've got your paintbrush like this, and you go back and forth over, sometimes over a ridged area, no matter what, it will, sometimes this wood, the little sharp edge will want to pull through. And so it's really helpful if you can go back over it with the small 1-inch brush, dip it in the color paint that you're using, and just add it over that little ridge area. I use these a lot. I use them down on the curves of the legs. It's a lot easier to use this type brush for that. I use it around the top edge a lot. So it's just a brush like my grandfather clock's got a lot of small wooden edges that this is just going to be too big for, and this is the way to go. These are also on my supply list, and like I said, they're not expensive. They're not fancy. I don't buy them in the artist section. I buy them in packets at Hobby Lobby on the paint aisle. So I highly recommend those to you guys. Some people try to paint with this. Don't do that. These things are terrible. It's a sponge brush. These are more for like kids in school. Just don't. They have a hard plastic thing that's up inside there, and it scrapes your paint, and they don't hold up. They're like one use only, and then you have to throw it away. If you really want a sponge at the end to take off your brush strokes, I recommend one of these sponges right here. You can use them over and over again. They're a nice flat surface. There's nothing hard inside them. They're made to hold on to. They wash and wear beautifully. So that is something else I forgot to tell you. The Klingons also did really well for little brush stroke. These have very, very, very little brush stroke, and there's a tip that I'm going to show you when I start painting that will alleviate your brush strokes. I mean, down to nothing almost. I mean, there's still going to be some brush stroke there, but I'm not going to tell you you aren't going to have any, but it alleviates most. I am not a freak about brush strokes. I don't mind brush strokes. I just don't. If the way you've laid it on is right and the direction is good, if you can see a little bit of brush stroke, that's okay. It's a hand-painted piece. I don't want it to look like it came out of a factory. I want it to look like I held a brush in my hand lovingly and put every single stroke of paint on there. As long as it's a beautiful piece, don't get all hung up on brush stroke. Just don't. But if you do, if you can't let it go, then you can smooth your piece out with the sponge that I showed you. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But I'm going to give you another little tip that'll help. Okay, so we're moving on to paint. Real quick before we do, this is almost completely dry. I'm going to turn this on. This is a heat gun. I don't think I have this on the supply list. I do have an Amazon influencer shop. You can search for me, Tracy's Fancy, on Amazon. And I believe this is in my influencer shop, but you can get these at Home Depot also. It's just a heat gun. This one's by Wagner. They don't blow out a lot of air. I usually show people on my ponytail. It'll move my hair around, but it doesn't put out a lot of air. It puts out heat. You can see it's bright orange on the inside, and it is hot. This metal piece right here, you don't touch that. It will literally take the skin off your fingers. So these aren't, don't mess around with them. But I am a fast painter. I do my projects really fast, and unless Matt makes me wait overnight while he's gluing and clamping. But I like to apply this when I'm trying to speed up the drying process. It literally just sucks the moisture right out of it. And I'm trying to dry these corners. You can see it. You can watch it turn from white to clear. It's turning clear right now as we speak. I don't usually hold it in one place. I usually try to keep the heat moving around. Anywhere that it's puddled, it's going to dry those areas for me. The flat part's already dry. I'm okay with that. I think that that's where I'll show you some painting techniques. We'll get this side, see the side over here still a little bit white. We'll dry this out. Chalk paint dries really fast. This is primer, but if you're using chalk paint is usually dry in about 20 minutes. Now, as far as being cured, C-U-R-E-D, paint cure time on any paint is about 30 days. About 30 days for it to fully cure, to be fair. But your paint is really usually dry in about 20 minutes, and you can usually start a second thin coat. If you've gone with a very thin coat, you can usually dry over that. I usually run a heat gun over my chalk paint anyway. You don't want to get too close. you don't want to scorch your piece. You don't want to cause crackle or anything like that. But you can do this and push your project along a little bit. Some people call this forcing the project, and I'm okay with that because I got stuff to do. I have stuff to do. All right. That is that. We're going to move on. I've got a little bit of primer up in here. I'm just going to kind of touch that, dry that out a little bit, gathered there. We're going to go ahead and paint. It's a little fast, obviously, but we're going to do it for video purposes, okay? All right, y'all forgive me while I turn my back on you. I've got my mic on. You should be able to hear me. I'm going to go ahead and lay down some paint. So, Matt, let's pick a color. I think I will... you know what? How about let's do the tea rose. It's over there, Matt. It's probably a top pink. It looks kind of like a pale pink. It's called tea rose. This piece is not going to be tea rose. I'm not sure what color this piece is going to be. On the shelf, babe, right there, behind it. Does that say tea rose? Great. All right, so Matt's got tea rose for me. I'm choosing tea rose because the transfer that I'm going to put on the piece, can they see me or just the piece?
Mainly just the piece.
Okay, I want them to be able to. I'm probably going to use, I'm not going to use tea rose on the piece, but I'm going to do it on the center here for you guys. And then, I think I got it. There we go. Sometimes you have to hit these jars on the ground or on something hard. All right, so let's get started. You can use this paint right out of the jar with a dry brush, no problem. It's going to be nice and thick for you. And I like thick, and that's going to be more of your one coat, okay? Or you can use your paint dry and just use a spray water bottle, which you need to have this with you at all times if you want a smooth finish like y'all are after. You can spritz your brush and then dip it, or you can spray your piece a little bit, and that's what I like to do. I like to spritz my piece. So I'm gonna spray my piece just a little bit on the top, and then I'm even gonna spray my brush just a little, not much. I didn't drown it, I just spritzed it a little bit. I don't dip my brush in water, but my piece is a little bit wet, okay? So I'm gonna start laying some paint down here. I just start, if I wanna add more water, I can. The reason for that is it goes on a lot easier. It's easier to move it around, and it goes on a lot smoother. So as before, I told you that I like to start in my edges like this, get up in there because you know you're gonna have to move that paint around. I should have done this first actually. So I'm gonna do that and get up in there good. And I move pretty fast because I don't want you to be nervous about it, but I am gonna let you know that chalk paint does start to dry on you, but that's okay. If it does, a little spritz of water and it reactivates and loosens back up, and you just move on. So you can see that I'm kind of making a mess here. Let me spritz that again. My strokes are not good, and that's okay. I know that I'm gonna move this out just the way I want it in just a second. I'm just getting around all my edges. All right, now I've got paint up here. Do you see that? So I go up here and I kind of smooth that out like that because I don't want that to leave any kind of ridge. All right, so here we go. Now I'm gonna just go up here and I'm gonna go left to right, just like that. It makes it nice and smooth. And can you hear that? Can you hear it? That's not my brush, people. That is the what do you call it? The minerals, the sediment in the paint. Make it nice and smooth, left to right, one stroke, and that is done. What a transformation. So quick, it's done. Okay? Now, I'm telling y'all, that is a pretty freaking good coverage. And we even used water. If we did not use water, that is a definite one coat piece. And we didn't even use white primer, y'all. We used clear primer. That is what great coverage you get with this paint. You are not gonna find that. If you buy that chalk paint at Home Depot, you can try it, but you're not going to be, what I think is gonna happen is you're gonna question chalk paint entirely, and you're gonna question yourself, and you're gonna think you're not good at it. That product is not setting you up for success. What I'm telling you here today is setting you up for a successful product that keeps you excited, makes you feel motivated, and inspires you to keep going and keep challenging yourself. What was that? Is it thundering? Oh, it's thundering outside. Okay, so how pretty is that, you guys? So let's do it again. Okay, let's do it again. Spritz the piece a little, spritz my brush, dip it, just a little bit of paint. You don't need much paint at all, and you just start spreading it out. Down in my edges. And it is a beautiful, smooth finish too, by the way. I do have a technique that's on the top of the dresser that I want to show you. As a matter of fact, Matt, did you dump out the cleaner already?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to show y'all that because Matt dumped my cleaner out. I'll fake it. I'll fake it. I do have a really good tip for painting the top of large pieces like buffets or dressers. All right, here I go. Left to right. I put it on sloppily. I'm moving left to right. Nice and smooth. Now, as it's starting to dry, I can see that I am going to need to do, if I wanted to, if I wanted a super full coverage, I am going to need to put another coat on. And it is because we added water to the paint. If you don't want to use water, you'll get, like I said, a much better coverage. Just smoothing those out so that I don't have a definite ridge. I call it feathering, y'all. You just go back and feather. The reason being, I'm not sure I'm going to paint this outside the tea rose, or I would. So isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful, isn't it? Okay, so that is that. I guess let me go ahead for you guys, even if I choose to paint this a different color, I'm going to go ahead and paint this bottom piece down here. Let's talk about drawers, y'all. Someone did ask a really good question. Someone asked me, how do you keep the drawers and doors from sticking after you've painted them? They seem to be tacky and they want to stick. I thought that was a really good question. Back in the day, before I started using good chalk paint, and I was a latex painter, it is very sticky. Latex paint is very tacky and sticky, and it likes to grab onto itself if it's put next to each other. Chalk paint won't do that after, when it's dry, it just becomes part of the wood. So this is a really, really good time. Babe, would you put water in here so I can put my brush in there? This is a really good time to explain. One of the questions was, what is the difference between chalk paint and latex paint? I'm not sure scientifically exactly what the difference is between the two because I'm not sure exactly what's in each of them. But what I can tell you is, as far as durability in your furniture painting, latex paint is pretty. You can get it in several different sheens. It is not going to bind to absolutely everything. It's just not. If you do not clean it, sand it, prime it, and give some sort of tooth for it to grab onto whatever you're painting it over, it is not in any way, there is no way to make it become part of the furniture itself. You're just putting a skin on top of the furniture. So, which is fine. You put a top coat on it and it seems hard and sturdy, but it's still a skin. You've got the furniture, then the skin of latex paint, and then the skin of the top coat, because that top coat doesn't mix in and become part of that latex paint. It sits on top of the latex paint because the latex paint itself sort of self-seals itself. Then you put the top coat on top of that. So if that seal is broken, if you have some area like this and you break it, if it gets dinged or you move it or your grandkid, plows a car into it, and that seal of skin gets broken, if someone wants, they literally can go up to it and pick at it, and then it'll start peeling. And I know you've seen it before on furniture. I know you've seen it on bedroom doors. I know you've seen it on trim work that hasn't been properly done. You pick it and you can peel it away, and it will peel away like a skin. That's the difference. That durability is just not there. Chalk paint, the durability that comes from chalk paint, this is why. When you have your wood piece and you've cleaned it and you've primed it or prepped it the way you're supposed to, and you put your chalk paint on there, you heard all of that noise when I was moving my brush. That's the minerals and the sediment that's in the paint. When you are putting that on to the furniture, it sits there sort of like a dust almost. When this paint dries, you can feel it. You can feel the texture of those products in that paint. They're sitting there waiting to absorb the top coat that you put on it, whether you're putting on wax or whether you're putting on a top coat. they soak into that chalk paint. So it's not a skin on a skin. They soak into the chalk paint, and they help that chalk paint that's already wanting to bind to the wood with that clay and the sediment that's inside there. It becomes like cement. It like cements onto the tooth of the product that you're putting it on top of. So if that seal gets broken at some point, you will never be able to peel it off. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't bind together like glue and then peel away. It just scratches. It may get a scratch in it at some point, but then you can kind of go back and touch that up with some more chalk paint and another little piece of wax or whatever. But it may scratch, but it's never going to just peel and peel and peel. So that's the difference. Sticking doors and drawers. Back in the day, I pulled all of my drawers out. I opened all of my doors, and I would paint on the inside. So like this piece right here, I would have opened it up and I would have painted inside here. And I would have painted inside here. I just did that. That's what I thought we were supposed to do. It's what everybody did. But then if you don't let that cure for 30 full days, and then even when you do and you close it, it wants to grab a hold of the other piece, and you end up peeling paint off, and it would just peel, just like the latex paint peels. Chalk paint will not do that as badly, but as what I have decided to do, because everybody else started doing it, I was like, why am I doing that? That doesn't make any sense. I just paint with my drawers in now, and I leave the raw edge there so that so when it would happen and it would get sticky, those pieces, I would have to open the drawers and sand off that edge. I would just sand it all off. I'd sand back the doors and drawers. Now, if you really just want to paint the inside of there, that's fine, but you have to do some work before you put paint on there. You need to run an electric sander inside and around every single edge that's going to close. You need to knock some of that wood back. You need to make that door a little bit smaller or that drawer a little bit lower. You need to literally sand it down so that you can put a layer of paint there, because they're made to be a nice tight fit. They don't have a bunch of room for a bunch of extra paint in there. So I just don't do that anymore. I just paint just like this. And then when I open my drawer, when my project's done, I open the drawers, and some of the the brush bristles have gone in there and added, paint. You can see it. I just take my sandpaper and just sand those little extra fluffy marks of paint that have gotten in between there. I just sand it off, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful like that. So that's my answer to that question. So that answered 2 questions. Okay, so we are here now, and I see that it's puddled a little bit right here. I'm going to kind of hit that with my little 1-inch brush. Another good reason for these brushes is to get in and get some of the puddles out, just like that. Okay. So let's talk about, I'm going to stand up and show you a trick, and then we're going to talk about glazes, top coats, and waxes. And how long are we, Matt?
We're at 33 minutes.
On this one? Okay, great. Okay, so y'all are getting way more than an hour class. I'm sorry, it's just really hard to put in an hour. Okay, so let's say that I'm just going to demonstrate a technique for you. Let's say it's time to paint on top of this piece right here. So it's a big, long piece, and I am working with chalk paint, and it dries really quickly. So how do I do this and not leave end of brush strokes? Well, this is what I do. This is what I've done for years. I start in the middle. I would dip my brush. I start in the middle right here. And I only do like from here to the middle of it, from the back to the middle. I'm going to do the part closest to me first. So I paint real quick, just sloppy. Just get the paint on there. And then I dip again, and I come over here and I paint this side, all from this point down real quick. And then I dip my brush again. I come over here and I paint on this side. All right, great. Now, it's still a little bit tacky, but we're up against time. So then I start on one side, and I stroke all the way across and all the way back and all the way across and all the way back. And I bring all 3 sections, middle, right, left, together in one nice long stroke. Good. Done. Hurry up. Let's move to the front section, because I want these 2 ridges to work together too. So I dip, I paint the middle, paint, dip, paint the right, dip, paint the left, dip. Now start here, and I go all the way across, left to right, left to right, left to right, until I've worked all the way off the front of the piece. And there we go. Now we've got long brush strokes from one end to the other. That's my trick. I know that seems super simple, and some people are like, well, I would have done that anyway. And some people, I tell it and they're like, what? Oh my gosh, that's how you do it? The chalk paint dries, and I didn't know how to do it. And I would get like one long stroke, and then I would get another long stroke, and I couldn't move fast enough. That's the way to do it. Okay, so that is a good, easy tip. Let's go back around the front. We're going to talk about glazes and top coats real quick. Let me grab those from over here. We are going to talk about clear coat and gator hide and wax and some glazes and when you would use each. Okay. This part is just really a preference. It depends on the look that you're going for, what you find yourself comfortable using, and I can tell you my favorites. For years, I top coated with no matter what paint company I was working with, no matter how much I liked their paint. I have never found a top coat that I liked better. I have now with Dixie Belle, but prior to that, I have never found a top coat that I liked better than General Finishes. So if you are just wanting to purchase something that's local and you don't want to order, I have General Finishes in my Amazon shop if you do want to order it, but you can get it here in town. They carry it at Wood Crafters. It's like a man's wood crafting shop. It's called Wood Crafters, and it's General Finish, and they also carry Milk Paint. But their top coat high performance is the name of it. It's the one I like the most. I don't have any more here. I finished it out, and now I have found another top coat that I like also. But I just wanted to tell you that it is a product that served me very well, and I used it for a very long time and had great luck with it. Had I not started working with Dixie Belle, tried it and loved theirs for the first time, it's the first time I've ever liked another top coat. I've switched over to them 100%. But prior to that was General Finish. So try that out if you do not want to order Dixie Belle from me, and if you don't want to try Dixie Belle, I'm totally fine with that. Give High Performance by General Finish. My favorite was their matte and their satin. Those were my favorite finishes. Okay, Dixie Belle has many options to choose from, and I am a clear coat girl. I like to use a clear coat. I am not super big. I do not use clear wax ever, 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 ever. They make good waxes. They have paste wax and they have liquid wax, a spray liquid wax. They're great. I just don't use clear wax. If I'm going to use clear, I use a top coat. And their options are, this one is called clear coat in satin, and they also have clear coat in flat and clear coat in gloss. But I usually use the satin. And again, just like the primer, it is not clear. It's white and it dries completely clear. So you're on the plug. So don't freak out if you get it and you think that you've ordered a clear coat and you think you've got white paint. It's not white paint. It's clear coat satin, I promise. I love it. It's got great consistency. It doesn't run when you're working on this type of surface. A lot of the top coats run. They're very runny. And I think that that's why they put this other additive in it that makes it creamy, yet it dries like a watery clear coat. So it has no smell, no odor at all. Love it. Love, love, love it. But my favorite, are you wanting to tell me something?
Your mic slipped in there.
My favorite top coat of theirs is called Gator Hide. This is Gator Hide. It is my all-time favorite top coat that they have because I do a lot of pieces for clients in their nurseries and children's rooms. Those are because my pieces are whimsical. People are drawn to me to do a lot of work for kids and children. And so I need something super durable to go in those rooms. And I love Gator Hide. It repels water. It's actually water repellent. Now it's not, what's that word? It's not waterproof, but it's water repellent. So if water spills on it, it's at least gonna give you some time to get over there and wipe it up, and it's not gonna ruin your finish. Yeah, that's that. So it's really good for to use on kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets also. I use it on all my pieces. I also like the finish. It's not a gloss, but it's more than a satin. It definitely has a sheen, a definite sheen. A little more than a satin sheen, I think. And I like that when I do a lot of detail on pieces, it really catches the light. And so I post a lot of pictures of up close of Gator hide on pieces and I say, do you see that sheen? That's Gator hide. I love that sheen. Some people want the durability of Gator hide, but they don't want the sheen. So you can do that. You can put Gator hide on and get the durability, and then after you finished using Gator hide and it's dry and you wait till the next day, you can put Dixie Belle clear coat in flat back on top of the Gator hide, and it knocks back the sheen, yet you have the durability of the Gator hide too. So you can do that, but I like this sheen, and most of my projects that you've seen over the last 6 months have this finish on it. So if you like the way it looks, this is the product that I use. That's that. So let's talk about wax. Their paste wax comes in a can just like this. They call it Best Dang Wax. Comes in a can. This one is black. It's my favorite wax that they have. They have white, they have brown. I use their brown a lot too. Their black is my favorite. This is a brand new can that I just got. This is their black wax. It's amazing. It is not a hard paste. It's a very, very, very baby soft paste, which makes it so easy to use. I put it on, I don't even use a special brush for it. I usually use a round brush. I dip it in and I use it over my paint. But they have it in clear. So if you want to try a clear wax, their clear paste wax is really good. If you want a colored wax, I recommend their paste wax. They have glazes also. So this is a grunge glaze. It's a dark glaze. That's kind of like a, will you open that, babe? It's kind of like a black, but it's more of like a dark charcoal gray color. This is the color of it. But it's not as intense as the black wax, so I really like the drama and the intensity of the black wax. So if you paint a piece red, like fire engine red, because you like red, but that's a little too bold, you use black wax on top of it. You can use the glaze if you want, but if you use black wax on top of it, it just deepens that fire engine red and it makes it like rich. So black wax richifies your color. It richifies your color. It makes it just super rich. That's the best way. And it gives it like a dark shadow in all of the crevices. It's really, really amazing. But my biggest hint to you is, someone asked this question. Let's see who asked this question. I just wrote it down. Celeste, she goes by Coco. Coco asked the question, when you're glazing using gilding wax or colored waxes, do you do it before or after the top coat? That is a great question. I'm going to highly recommend as a beginner painter to top coat first. So paint your piece, put your top coat on it, whether it's Gator hide or the satin that you want to use, put your top coat on. Let that dry, and then go back and use your dark wax. If you want to intensify and richify and use dark wax, I would put it on top of the top coat. So paint, seal it with a top coat, then use a dark wax to enhance. The reason is chalk paint, like I told you, is very porous and it's sitting there waiting for something to pour into it. So if you've got porous chalk paint like this right here and you go to put black wax on it, it's going to suck up that black wax so much and you are really going to have a difficult time rubbing the excess wax back off. If you put a top coat on it first, then you rub your black wax on it and take a cloth and remove the excess, it will actually, Matt, can we bring that black stool over here? I mean the white stool? Yes. I have a piece that we used in the course the other night that didn't record. I'm going to have him put that right here in front of me, and I'm going to give you a little example of what happens if you don't top coat it first. I'm going to put it right here. Oh, wow. Who's put their feet on it already?
Oh, that'd be me.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. We're going to wipe off his feet. All right, so we did an example of what it looks like if you dip in water, what it looks like if you spray with water, and what it looks like if you don't use any water. So I want to aim down here. All right, so this is a piece that's got fluff on it, one coat of fluff, and I am going to use black wax on it, and I'll use grunge on the other side. This is going to suck in like crazy because there's no sealer on this paint, okay? So I'm just taking my brush, I'm dipping in the black wax. It's also a really good idea to have a paper plate or a paper towel nearby. Kind of go ahead and take your excess off. I'm gonna put it on like this. You just get in there, just like that. And Matt, I'm gonna need a white rag. And I think they're hanging on the side of that towel over there. Okay, so this is gonna be pretty intense, you guys, because I did not seal this first. If you seal first, you will be able to wipe it. You'll be able to wipe it all back off, every single bit of it, if you want to. What's that?
Acorns.
Oh, acorns are falling, you guys, on my metal roof. Whew, it's loud. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And then you want to take your rag. Sometimes I wet it a little bit, just a little. Just spritz some water on it. And you want to start rubbing back. So this is going to give it, obviously it's going to intensify my white and make it more of a gray. Okay. Another thing about sealing is you aren't going to have any of your chalk paint rub off, which is called wet distressing, which is definitely a look a lot of people go for. So you can see in how the black wax is left right in here in the cricks or the crooks. So very, very, very little of this wax wants to come back off. Had I sealed it first, I would be able to really pull through the white, pull back the white, and I would only have black wax left in all the crevices. But right now I have black wax left everywhere. Now there is a trick, and I don't have any clear wax, or I would show you, but you can use clear wax if you've got too much wax in any area. And I also just used water. So you can see that I'm not making this pretty, you guys, but I just want you to see that their wax is water soluble. So you can pull some of it back. I sprayed my rag, and I am taking off some of the wax that way. So wax scares a lot of people, and if you use a sealer first, I'm telling you, you will be so much more comfortable using the wax if you just seal your piece first. So I'm actually able to bring through a lot of the white. Okay, so it's not pretty. I just wanted to show you. I would never put black wax on white, to be honest, ever, ever, ever. I just happen to have a white piece out here that we painted, and that way I can give you a little demonstration of the black. I love the black wax. Black wax is, I just used it on the most contrasting paint right there, and I would never, ever put those colors together. But it was a good example to show you how it works. I would use black wax on any bright colors like hot pink or burgundy or red or purple. It's beautiful on purple. Really, really pretty. So that's that. The glaze is super easy to use, y'all. It's like a cream. It's like yogurt. It's kind of thin like yogurt, but it's got some thick consistency to it. You do the same thing that I just did. You just brush it on. I'll show you what this glaze is like up here on this top step. It goes on super light. And you don't have to top coat with the glaze. It's not as grabby as the wax is. See, it goes on like a cream. And then you would just wipe back. This step needed another coat. But same thing. You don't have to go in straight lines. You just can put the glaze on just like this. It's very creamy. It's just like spreading yogurt all over. That's what it feels like to me. It just kind of dirties it up. Gives it a little bit of a dirtier, aged look. And their glaze comes in many, many colors too. Just took the brightness of the white. Just kind of aged it a little bit. So let's see. I think that's it. The top coats, glazes, and when do we use them? How do we use them? Wax is... When they first came out with chalk paint, Annie Sloan is the one who came up with the whole chalk. Well, she's not the first one. She's the first one who started marketing it as chalk paint. In the beginning, there was only wax. That's what they said. It's the only way to seal your paint. And it was great. Everybody was super excited about the ease of chalk paint. And So everybody was using wax and it sucked. And her wax is super hard and you had to work it really hard and you had to scrub it into the paint and then you had to let it sit and then you had to come back with a buffer. I even had an electric buffer and would like buff all my pieces, and it was a pain and it was exhausting. And so that originally was why everybody waxed. That's what they believed was the only way to set your chalk paint. Then after that, people came out with liquid wax, and then they came out with spray wax, and everybody's like, oh yay, it's wax, but it's so much easier to use and you don't have to buff and you don't have to scrub so hard and work it so hard. And then somewhere along the way, someone was like, hey, a water-based sealer soaks right into the chalk paint. It solidifies it just as good as the wax did. So let's just use that. Let's just start putting on a sealer. And then they started coming up with glazes and colored glazes. So I do use wax and I do use glaze, but they are only to bring out the carvings and details and edges of areas that I want to enhance. I absolutely will use wax on this carved area right here. Whenever I decide what color I want this piece, I'll be using wax here. I'll be using wax around the edges. No doubt that I will add some shadows and highlights and depth with probably black wax, either that or the brown. So that's when I use it. Do you need to top coat and then wax and then wax and then top coat? I told you if you paint and you want to use a colored wax, then top coat it, then use the colored wax, and then you really don't need to seal over on top of that. The colored wax will set itself. Just let it get it how you want it, wipe it back how you want it, and let that sit and let that cure. And by the next day, your wax is pretty cured. 24 hours, 48 hours, your wax is cured. And then, like I said, 30 full days for your paint to cure. So that's that. So I think that's it. I think that's all we need to discuss. I think that is all that I need to cover with you guys. Let me check my notes real quick. And I'm sorry that we've gone so much over an hour. Maybe you've had to watch me in 2 segments. I'm not sure. But more information, right? The more the merrier, right? Top coats, brush sponge. Okay, gifts. So in an email, if you have bought this course, you will receive an email that has a basic supply list that I suggest that you use, or that is a good checklist to set your shop up to get ready to go. If you have that list, you should be able to accomplish any small beginner project for sure. And then now, the second gift that I'm giving is colors that work well together. I'm asked that all the time. How do you put 10 different colors on one piece of furniture? How do you know what colors go together? My pieces look like a hot mess. It looks like my 5th grader did it. I have certain color combinations that I really, really like. And so Emily is my virtual assistant in Florida, and she put together that list for me and put some of my pieces across the top of it. And you can see that colors that most people would never put together really do work well together. So I shared those combinations with you, and I hope that that's helpful. And they have Dixie Belle names, or you can just use any reds or greens or mints or turquoises or teals that you want, but you can see that those colors work well together, and you can print that out and maybe hang that in your craft room or your shop. Then the third gift that I had to you is all of the top coats and what they're called and their uses, how to use them, when to use them, my favorites. Those are there for you too. So let me make sure I went over some questions. Melissa had asked what are the best colors for pieces that have sentimental value or have emotional attachments to them? That's hard for me to say because I don't know each person's home. So if you're asking me like for timeless pieces that you feel like are going to be passed down in your family but you want to paint, I would always go with an off-white or a black. Those are just the 2 best timeless non-trend colors. Both of those work really, really well, and especially on family heirlooms. If you really decide that you're going to paint them, I would go with one or the other, off-white or black, which in Dixie Belle colors, I would say fluff or caviar. Those are my 2 favorite, black and white. Someone asked, I think that might have been Coco, also asked, Coco asked, what is more white, fluff or cotton? Cotton in Dixie Belle is more white. Fluff has a little bit of a gray undertone, but not really. I mean, if you're putting white by white by white, it falls under kind of like the gray undertone family. It's my favorite. I use it on absolutely everything. Some people like drop cloth. The drop cloth is a good white also. It looks like a sand color, but it's really more of a white. I answered Rima and what makes chalk paint different than latex. Jenny asked that she wants to learn stripes, harlequin checks. That was covered in course 1 and course 2 of my Whimsical Wonderland summer series. So that's not out or available right now. We will probably re-release and reopen that course again after the holidays. But if you are on my email list at tracysfancy.com, if you're on that email list, you will always be informed of when the courses are being re-released. So Jenny, you'll be able to take that whenever we re-release that, and just hang tight. You'll be able to take that. Someone asked when the next course is. I think Judy may have asked that. Oh no, it was Coco again. She asked when is the next course. We're actually always go to tracysfancy.com/whimsy /tracysfancy.com/whimsy, and that takes you right to the Whimsical Wonderland page, and it will always show you what course is available at that time. And we usually offer individual courses and then a break in the price if you purchase a bundle course. And all of those courses are not for advanced painters, they're just advanced techniques. So once you have this course under your belt, you're welcome to come on in and join us there. And we revisit some of this in those courses also. Joy asked best finish options. Joy's the one who asked about the sticking drawers. That was a great question. Daphne asked when to top coat between finishes. We talked about that. And Jody said that her worst fear is getting a nice finish, and we talked about that. I did want to also real quick tell you that if you would like, you do not have to do this, but when you put your coat of chalk paint on, and it feels a little rough to you, if you will take your sanding block that I showed you with the sandpaper wrapped around it, a really fine grit, a high number, a fine grit, and just very lightly, real soft. As a matter of fact, Matt, if you'll hand that to me, I'll do that for them real quick. If you'll just real lightly go over your surface, you will just do one stroke. You will be so surprised at the difference in the feel. So just take it and go like that. Very soft. Didn't put any pressure on that at all. And the difference between right here and right here I can feel. It just knocks off that coarseness off the surface. Then just brush it with a brush or wipe it down with a dry rag, and you're ready to do your next coat, or you're ready to put your sealer on. You do not have to do that. But if you are someone who is a texture person and you want like something to feel like butter instead of velvet, because they both feel good, that's the way you get that. There's a big difference in that to that. So I forgot to tell you guys that. Then Tracy asked, what other paints do you use besides chalk paint? The other paints that I use are Modern Masters. I have those in my Amazon shop. I'm not sure if Emily put those on the supply list or not. Modern Masters is my go-to for all of the metallic paints for large pieces. If I need a lot of metallic paint, actually, Matt, if you'll grab me a couple of jars right up there on the right, I have it in all colors. Modern Masters is what I use if I'm going to be painting a big piece, because it comes in very, very large sizes. He actually didn't get me a large jar. He got me small jars. That's okay. This is my favorite gold. This is Olympic gold. It's a small jar. I love this. I buy it in quarts. I buy it in big, big jars, and I can paint an entire piece with this. I love their metallic paint. Love, love, love it. I think they must have been out of the big quart, and I had to buy a small one. Then I also use a tiny little bottle of gold paint. It's about this big. It's down there, Matt, in a bucket all the way down. Tiny little bottle all the way down by the Silver Leaf packets. It's a tiny little paint. It's called Liquid Leaf. I don't know if that was in the supply list or not. I've got that in my Amazon shop. This is my gold paint of choice. This is what I use. That's what I use on all of my pieces, on the details or the top ridges. People ask me all the time, holy cow, what is that gold paint that you're using? And it is, man, you've got the tripod again. It's called Liquid Leaf. It's very, very strong. I have to use a mask when I use this. It has a very caustic smell. It's very fumey. They do not sell it in bottles larger than this. And this little bottle is like, I don't know, I think like $9 or $7 or something like that. A little bit goes a long way though. But if I'm doing a really large piece of furniture, I use the Modern Masters Olympic Gold. So that's it. That's all I use besides Dixie Belle. That's all I use. Then someone else had another question about, nope, I think that was it. That covered it. So I think that's it, you guys. So thank y'all for sticking with me. I could talk about this. I think I could hold an entire we can workshop and talk about all of this in such greater depth, even just the basics. I really do. Lighting is really good, you guys. We've got 2 light kits out here right now, shining on me, shining on this piece. Good lighting is so important. If you're in your garage and you're working with an overhead, what do they call those lights? Fluorescent light or one single bulb, really raw light. I get it if that's all you've got, but if you can get a light kit, I have those in my Amazon shop too. You will be shocked at the difference. You will turn that light on and be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was there. For years I worked like that under just the bulb, and I would open my garage door and the natural sunlight would come in. I'd say, how did that happen? That whole side, I can still see through it. Yeah, you need good light when you work, because you'll be shocked if your client shows up to pick up their piece and you get it outside and something shows up that did not show up in poor lighting. You think you've got good light until you've got good light. It makes all the difference in the world. So I hope. I am very dry mouthed. I need some water and I need some more lipstick. I have talked so much. Thank you so much, y'all, for choosing me to help you with your basics. I know that there's a lot of information out there. I know there's a lot of free information out there on YouTube, but sometimes that can be a little overwhelming, and it means a lot to me that you came to me for the information, and I hope I've delivered, and I hope you've been able to hear me well. And thank you so much for giving us an extra week to get you this video. And those of you that joined us live, we really appreciate that you were there. I had a great time, by the way. So anyway, thank you so much. And remember, tracysfancy.com. Go there, sign up, make sure you're on the email, and follow me at Tracy's Fancy on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. We're trying to get my YouTube numbers up. I'd love for you to join me there too. We post all of our videos there. Even my health food, Fancy Food Friday, Tracy's Fancy, eating right, making good healthy choices. I do that every Friday morning at 9 o'clock on Facebook, 9 o'clock Central Time. You can join me there too. And I think that's it. We'd love to have you in any of our future courses. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.